Hello everyone, and welcome again to the Refocus Your Health program. So we're currently in week 5, which is called weight management. And I hope you've all been enjoying the program so far. I know I have definitely. We're on the final stretch now, so this week and next week will be the last few weeks. And for those who have missed out on coming to the sessions, I have got them all recorded and I have been sending them out. If you haven't been getting that email, let me know. I can send you an email with all the links. So today we're going to be talking about a few things, but the topic is weight management. So we're looking at weight loss, weight gain in the form of muscle, weight maintenance for those who have met their goals and want to continue on, and we're also going to look at muscle versus fat as well as diet versus exercise, as these are quite important and they can greatly influence your goals. So muscle and fat. Muscle is denser than fat, which means it does take up less space than fat does. It takes up approximately 4/5 as much space. So two people, for example, may be the same height and weight, but the person with a higher body fat percentage will usually wear a larger clothing size. And keeping in mind, muscle is slightly more metabolically active than fat, meaning that it burns more calories when you are at rest. So usually what we see when weight training is a gain in weight, which a lot of you might actually relate to, but you will also see, if you gain muscle, a reduction in your size. So it's not always that bad gaining weight if it is muscle. So it's important not to let the number on the scales affect your mood, as they might show negative numbers, but it might not be the case. So a good measurement to go off would actually be waist size and how your clothing is fitting, or your body fat percentage if you have a composition scan. So that's why muscle and fat and knowing the difference between the two is really important, because it can actually determine how you look, which is essentially what all of us want to try and work on, not just that one number on the scale that really doesn't mean much. And then diet versus exercise. So as a rule of thumb, weight gain or loss is generally 75% diet and 25% exercise. So we will go through how you can make your diet and exercise work for your weight management throughout this presentation, so I won't touch too much on it. But I just want you to know the difference between fat and muscle. And as you can see in the pictures there on the slide, you've got quite a big chunk of fat there to quite a smaller amount of muscle, and they would both weigh about the same. And as you can see, there's an example there. An 80-kilo person has 20% body fat, and an 80-kilo person with 35% body fat. Now you can see they both weigh the same, but they look vastly different. And these are just an example for a comparison. It's not actually a true thing, but it would in life-like situation. It's just a picture, so it wouldn't be exactly like that, but very similar. So firstly, it's important to know the healthy values when it comes to your goals. First, we've got BMI, which is that top one. So BMI is used to determine if you are a healthy weight for your height. It is calculated by dividing your weight in kilograms by your height in meters squared. And it places you in a category of either underweight, healthy weight, overweight, or obese, or morbidly obese, as you can see there. However, this should be taken with a pinch of salt, as it doesn't account for things like muscle mass or where the fat is stored on your body. So it is a good measurement tool for populations or quick appraisals, but shouldn't be the only measurement used for making your own goals. And in addition to BMI, we can look at waist circumference or waist to hip ratio to determine any risk factors for cardiovascular disease. So a waist to hip ratio of greater than 0.9 for men or 0.8 for women indicates that fat storage around the waist area is great, which can lead to a higher risk of cardiovascular disease. Now, to calculate waist to hip ratios, you literally just divide your waist centimeters by your hip centimeters, and that'll give you a number. So if you want to do it yourself, have a measurement. Women are usually around the narrow part of the waist, men are at belly button. And then there is also body fat percentage measurements. So for those that have seen me before and done the weight, the scales and the health assessments that I do have a scale that does body fat percentage, and if you're in an area where I can get to, we can do yours as well if you want. But this body fat percentage can be read by these special scales very easily. It only takes a few seconds. So body fat measurements are the best tools, in my opinion, and also scientific opinion, to go off when deciding what your goals are in terms of weight management, as it gives a direct representation of your size, health, and risk. And as you can see there, the body fat percentages that are healthy, you can see for women of most ages, under 33 or under 30% is the best amount. Now, we usually come across a few barriers when it comes to weight management, and I'm grouping all of weight management in one. It's not just weight loss, it's also maintenance or building muscle. So the first step to addressing these challenges that come up in the intervention process is to understand each barrier on a personal level. Once you can identify each challenge, it becomes easier to develop the skills necessary to move past it. And if you can hear a bit of fuzz in the background, it's actually raining very heavily today, so I apologize if the sound isn't coming through, okay? So barriers, it is also helpful to understand that challenges you confront are the same barriers that many other dieters confront as they try to eat well or stick to an exercise program. So some weight loss barriers are perceived barriers, meaning that the barrier is based on the thoughts or feelings of the dieter. Perceived barriers can be just as significant as real as concrete barriers, which might include a health condition or physical limitation. Whether the challenge is perceived or concrete, most barriers can be divided into three main categories: physical, environmental, and emotional. So some types of physical barriers could be things like fatigue, discomfort from doing the exercise, or underlying medical conditions. So some tips to try and overcome those barriers: you could communicate with your physician, so talking to your doctor. If you aren't losing the weight, there may be a medical cause, and it's important to know that weight gain can also be caused by some medication, as well as hormonal imbalances, thyroid disorders, or menopause. So if you are trying and it's not working for you, it might be one of those things, and it might be best to speak to a GP. You could also expand your healthcare team, so working with your primary care physician to get referrals to a registered dietitian or physical therapist who can tailor services to meet your needs. And often, if a physician referral is provided, there is a greater chance that insurance will actually help cover the cost of the service. So be sure to check your policy for the specifics of your own program. So things like dietitian, exercise physiologist, these things can all be covered. And it's important to also know your physician or GP can actually refer you for a program where you might actually be eligible to get free services. So make sure you check that out. It usually comes with chronic conditions. Another tip is to do your homework. So investigate different exercise plans or healthy cooking tips so that weight loss habits become more manageable. For example, if you're doing non-weight bearing activities such as water aerobics, they're often very much more comfortable for a larger person or someone who has joint issues. And also, to make dieting less difficult, consider signing up for a cooking class to learn ways to prepare healthy new meals and use different types of foods to make it work for your body. Then for environmental, so some examples of an environmental barrier are things like lack of access to healthy foods or exercise facilities, lack of social support, lack of time due to social activities, family or professional pressures. So some tips to try and get around that barrier is to talk to people around you. Get support from your family and friends by communicating your needs, and be specific about the ways in which they can help you to make your plan a success. So your spouse or partner may be willing to take on extra tasks. Your kids might be able to help around the house a bit more so you have more time for yourself. Or your employer may even be willing to support your diet and exercise plan by providing some flexibility to your work schedules. After all, a healthy employee is more likely to be a productive employee. And then also get creative about exercise. If going to the gym is out of the question, perhaps walk around the block or a park workout or even yoga from a YouTube channel will be able to help you get in shape. Be creative with it. You don't have to just go to the gym. And you could also walk neighborhood paths, climb stairs in your office or apartment building, or even plan a family hike for the weekend. That can be quite a great one. And then lastly, emotional. So some examples of emotional barriers are things like negativity, if you're stressed, or your motivation levels. And it would seem likely that if you do want to lose weight, that the last thing holding you back would be your own feelings about weight loss. But emotional barriers to weight loss are well documented and can be quite significant. And they also include skepticism about your ability to lose weight, or a negative physical activity history, and as well stress and lack of motivation. So some tips to try and overcome these barriers as well are to enlist the help of a qualified professional. So many behavioural health specialists, including social workers, therapists and psychologists, specialise in dealing with emotions related to weight loss, weight gain and obesity. If you have investigated medical causes for your inability to lose weight, maybe consider speaking to a therapist about maybe an emotional case or cause. Another thing is a certified personal trainer may be able to help. They are trained professionals and they are really good at motivating and keeping you on track. Another tip is to try and learn how to motivate yourself. So motivation is actually a skill that can be learned, and techniques such as positive self-talk and journaling are two techniques that experts use to boost motivation. Use stress reduction techniques. So stress from a lack of weight loss results from a medical condition or just from everyday annoyances can lead to emotional eating and to weight gain. So trying to learn a few stress reduction techniques such as deep breathing, meditation, or journaling will help to alleviate those cravings for the bad foods and maybe not doing the exercise. So there are some common barriers and a few just general tips to try and overcome them. Now, we're going into a bit more of the nitty-gritty. So exercise for weight loss, things that you can do with your exercise to help you lose weight. So cardiovascular or aerobic exercise is great for increasing your fitness, and it also keeps your calorie burn for the day high. Now, the American College of Sports Medicine reports that you can elevate your metabolism for up to 24 hours post-exercise by adding just one little twist to your exercise routine. Intervals. If you haven't heard of intervals, then all you have to do is inject brief periods of intense effort into your regular, say, walks, swims, bicycle, elliptical, or running sessions. So the intensity effectively resets your metabolism to a slightly higher rate during your workout, and it does take hours for it to slow down again. So that equals ongoing calorie burning long after you've showered and toweled off. If you're a walker and you typically exercise for about 30 minutes, maybe to get some intervals in, try adding a burst of jogging for 30 seconds every 5 minutes. And as you become more fit, you can increase the interval length to a minute and decrease the walking segments to maybe 4 minutes. So for the biggest metabolism boost, you'll want to make sure that the interval portion leaves you breathing pretty hard. Then there is resistance exercise, probably one of my most favorite and most important parts of weight loss. So while your heart and other organs demand fuel around the clock, there's little you can do to increase their metabolic needs. However, your muscles, these require constant feeding and can be changed, not like your organs. So make them bigger and they will demand more calories a day and night, thus increasing your metabolism. So an interesting one is that people say when they get older, their metabolism slows down. It's not from the age, it's actually from muscle loss, which does come with age, but you can offset that, especially as you age. You can make it slower, you can make the decline a lot less by trying to build muscle, and if you build more muscle, you obviously burn more calories and increase your metabolism. So also incorporating a lot of muscles in the exercise will increase the workout. So say if you're squatting, maybe instead of just doing squats, you could try and do a squat and a press with the bar, so above your head, or lunge and maybe a bicep curl, and that way you're working more muscles in the one movement, which makes it more efficient. So resistance exercise usually involves movements that put extra force on the body, and it doesn't have to be just weights. It can also be exercise in the form of body weight exercise or, running up a hill. There's different ways that you can make an exercise have resistance on it. So it's not just about going to the gym and pumping iron, if you get what I mean. And these cause the body to adapt and build muscle to help do those movements. So your body wants to help you do what you're doing. So to train specifically for weight loss, especially when it comes to weight training, you want to try and do a higher amount of reps. So around 15 to 25 reps is normal for trying to lose weight, and also 3 sets is a general rule. So if you're doing, say, squats, doing 15 to 25 or however many it takes for you to start feeling a bit tired, if you're burning out before the 15 reps is up, then you might need to lower the weight. So the important thing is there that you don't need to have it as a heavy weight, but you do still want to be getting a bit fatigued by the last rep. And then you do that 3 times, and that's what a set is. So try and do it if you can. Best for weight loss is a resistance exercise session at least 2 to 3 times a week, and your muscles will end up turning into furnaces that burn up those extra calories before your body can convert them to fat. Now, to get most out of your weight loss program, I mentioned before, compound exercises are the preferred and recommended method. So this is what I mentioned before, how we use 2 muscle groups in the one movement. So compound exercises are multi-joint movements that work several muscles or muscle groups at any one time. So by incorporating compound moves into your routine helps build muscles, which in turn, again, burns more calories. And certain moves recruit several muscles at once, allowing you to get the most bang for your buck and more calories burnt. The overall key to maximizing a weight loss through exercise is to always keep your body guessing though. So by changing your routine and varying the intensity or adding different types of exercises are great ways to maximize your workout. And it doesn't allow your body to adapt to your routine. So it's continually changing and making changes. So find an exercise that you really enjoy so that you can do it for longer and maximize your workout. And then the more calories you burn, the more weight you will lose, obviously. So if you're doing the same thing every week and not seeing any changes, it's probably because you need to change it up. Your body's used to it. It's just going to do the same thing now that you've been doing. Now, the best way to lose weight by far is a mix of cardio and resistance training. So generally I do say 2 to 3 resistance sessions a week with maybe 2 to 3 cardio sessions a week for maximized results. And generally about 5 sessions a week in total. You can do 6, but rest days are important, as we mentioned last week, but 5 sessions a week is usually the best, and it only has to be half an hour. It doesn't have to be forever. Now, nutrition for weight loss. So just a few general kind of guides for nutrition. So when you're looking at weight loss, it requires a calorie deficit of at least 500 to 1,000 calories to lose about half a kilo a week. So you say, I want to lose a kilo a week. You're going to have about 2,000 or 1,500 to 2,000 calorie deficit. Now, when you're looking at a calorie deficit, that is the amount of calories you're eating versus the amount of calories you're burning. So if you've got a Fitbit and you can see how many calories you burn a day, then that's great. You've got a good measurement tool. Otherwise, there's plenty of tools online which I can provide that kind of calculate how many you're burning, and then you can work out how many you need to eat during the day to get that deficit. So let's say my calorie burn for the day is 2,500 calories. If I want to be losing a kilo a week, I need to eat about 1,500 calories a day to meet that. So that means if you have a calculator as well, Fitbit app has a food calculator. That means 1,500 calories, and then I've lost almost a kilo for the week. Now you hear of people going on 1,200 calorie diets. They're quite low, and as you can see, to lose a kilo a week, that's pretty heavy, and 1,500 calories is quite high for someone who is trying to lose a bit of weight. So it might surprise you to actually calculate how many calories are in your foods. And yeah, that calculator you can use the Fitbit one, or there's one on MyFitnessPal as well. Now, as well, when you're thinking about weight loss and nutrition, try and consider a protein-rich approach, starting with your breakfast. So have a protein-rich meal first thing in the day, and it's also, studies have shown this assists in hunger control throughout the day, and it also addresses hunger. So trying to have protein at the start of your day will help as well. Now, another way is to eat 3 meals a day and 4 if you are hungry. So ensure that each meal has a protein source and plenty of vegetables for the fiber component. And fiber will help draw in the water and also slow down your digestion to ensure you feel fuller for longer. Now, just because you want to lose weight doesn't mean you need to follow a low-carb diet. So carbs are actually the first source of fuel for your body. So by focusing more on the overall calories you eat, this is where you're going to see the best results. Now, we will go over carbs in another slide, so I won't bang on too much about that, but they're the basic nutrition tips. But the main thing is calorie counting and portioning out your day and having that deficit. So, weight loss hacks. Now, I thought I'd put this slide in there because it's interesting. So we always think, how can we lose weight? What's a good way to lose weight? So these few little things I came across, and I thought, yeah, it's easy to overlook each, but each one of them has a significant kind of ability to make your weight loss even greater. So by drinking water, this actually helps boost your metabolism. It also cleanses your body of waste and acts as an appetite suppressant, which you might not know. Also, drinking more water helps your body stop retaining water, leading you to drop those extra pounds or kilos of water weight, as we've probably known when we get bloated. Smaller dinner plates can also help with portion control. It's a funny one, but a small dinner plate, you wouldn't think of it. Incidental exercise is also a great way to burn those few extra calories. So whether this is just parking a bit farther from the building you're walking into, taking the stairs, or maybe even doing some squats while you're doing housework, they can all help really great in getting your calorie burning up for the day. Or you could even try walking or riding instead of using the car if you need to walk somewhere or go somewhere close, or even if you're on a phone call, you can go for a walk while you're on that. Another way is to make healthy swaps for unhealthy foods. So, for example, you can try, instead of potato chips, maybe go for nuts or rice crackers. I definitely know rice crackers are a great choice because they are very low in saturated fat and sugar. Try and have fruit instead of sugar if you can, or olive oil or coconut oil instead of canola oil, as canola is quite saturated. Maybe try a spiraled veggie pasta rather than the white pasta. I definitely know I've had pasta in the past with sweet potato spirals, and it was delicious. The general rule is go for the brown over the white, so brown rice, wholemeal bread, brown bread over the white rice, white bread, white pasta, that kind of stuff. You could also try mashed cauliflower instead of potatoes, has quite a lower calorie density. Also low-fat Greek yogurt instead of sour cream, or even avocado instead of mayonnaise. And lastly, cottage cheese is much better than cheddar cheese. So really healthy options there instead of the unhealthier. Then there's also portion control, as I mentioned before, and a way you can help with portion control is to put them in freezer bags rather than picking out the entire packet. So for example, if you're eating, we won't hopefully go for this, it's just an example, but a bag of chips. If you find that you open a bag of chips and if you're pulling out of that bag and it can just empty in no time, it might be time to put them into little freezer bags so that you have a smaller portion in front of you. Maybe it makes you less tempted. Same could be said for nuts. Should have gone with nuts first. Another weight loss hack is to be your biggest fan. So positive energy is a great internal intrinsic motivator. So we talked about intrinsic motivation in one of the previous sessions, and that's where it's internal to yourself. You don't have any external factors influencing you. So by focusing on your own goals and where you are going will be the best way to keep you on track. So focusing on photos in magazines and other external things will only serve to create an external focus or extrinsic motivation, which has been shown to be detrimental in achieving goals, as it does set unrealistic examples. So by seeing those photos on Instagram, you could say they're the external factors. We want to internalize our motivation. Now, trying new types of exercise can also help give your body a shock and will positively impact your goals. We did talk about this just before, but as time goes on, doing the same exercises every week, as we know, can lead to a plateau or a stagnant unchanging result. So by changing the frequency or the mode, the duration, the weight of your weights, or maybe the time of your physical activity, your body will have to make constant changes to adapt and be able to cope. Thus you will see improvements in what you're training for. So some ways you can do that are maybe if you go for walks regularly, maybe try and take a backpack with you, and each walk try and add a little bit of weight to that backpack to make it a little bit harder each time. Or you could even go for a bit longer of a walk that time. Or if you're keen and have a bit of time, maybe try swapping the exercises you do. So instead of a run, go for a swim, or instead of a exercise Pilates class, maybe try and do a weights class like body pump, or maybe cycling or walking instead of each other. So there's some ways you can change your exercise. It's very easy. It is hard if you've kind of gotten used to the exercise you're doing and you really like it, because you don't obviously want to do something you don't like, but you might even find something better. Now, sleep. Sleeping well is one of the most important aspects of weight loss. Hunger is controlled by two hormones, leptin and ghrelin. So when leptin is a hormone that is produced in your fat cells, and it helps your brain know that you're full and decreases your appetite. Ghrelin increases your appetite while also reducing the amount of calories you burn, or your metabolism, and it also increases the amount of fat you store. So leptin's the good one, ghrelin's the bad one. In other words, you need to control leptin and ghrelin to successfully lose weight, but sleep deprivation makes that nearly impossible. So research published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that sleeping less than 6 hours triggers the area of your brain that increases your need for food, while also depressing leptin and stimulating ghrelin. So depressing the good one and making the bad one more. And if that's not enough, the scientists discovered exactly how sleep loss creates an internal battle that makes it nearly impossible to lose weight. So when you don't sleep enough, your cortisol levels rise. Now, this is the stress hormone that is frequently associated with fat gain. Cortisol also activates reward centers in your brain that make you want food. And at the same time, the loss of sleep causes your body to produce more ghrelin, and a combination of high ghrelin and cortisol shut down the areas of your brain that leave you feeling satisfied after a meal, meaning you feel hungry all the time, even if you just ate a big meal. And it's not just diet either. Sleep deprivation also has effects on your muscle and exercise levels. So scientists found that sleep debt can decrease protein synthesis, or your body's ability to make muscle, which causes your muscle to degrade and lose its definition, and can lead to a higher incidence of injuries. So just as important, lack of sleep makes it harder for your body to recover from exercise by slowing down the production of growth hormone, which is your natural source of anti-aging and fat burning that also facilitates recovery. So this happens in two different ways. So your poor sleep means less slow wave sleep, which is when the most growth hormone is released. And as previously mentioned, a poor night of rest increases the stress hormone cortisol, which slows down the production of growth hormone. And that means that the already reduced production of growth hormone due to lack of slow wave sleep is further reduced by more cortisol in your system, and it becomes quite a vicious cycle after that. So sleep, please, more than 6 hours. Now, I've also put in here weight loss myths. So myths are some things that we might say to ourselves to lose weight, but we need to know that they are, what the effects of each are. So there are many unhealthy misconceptions about weight loss, and there are no magical foods or ways to combine foods that actually melt excess fat in the body. So to reduce your weight, you need to make small, achievable changes to your lifestyle in terms of exercise or diet. And most of the foods or pills that claim to do this usually have a disclaimer that they will only work in conjunction with a healthy diet and exercise. So you could almost see them as a placebo effect. If you know what placebo is, that's when you don't actually take the medication, it just makes your body feel like you are, and then your body does the work. So low carbs. The low-carb diet began in 1797, courtesy of Dr. John Rollo, who treated his diabetic patients by removing carbohydrates from their meals. The medical community followed his lead, and today most people know the diet via the late Dr. Atkins, who advocated replacing carbohydrate intake with fats and a bit of protein for his obese type 2 diabetic patients. And more recently, the low-carb craze is purported to lend a metabolic advantage to those who overeat while pursuing low-carb and high-protein. But it's incorrect, because overeating will always cause an energy imbalance, leading to fat storage. And of course, overeating is overeating, whether it's seeds, nuts, or cotton candy. Though the hormonal effect will usually be different, weight gain still ensues either way. But if you're not obese, insulin resistant, type 2 diabetic, or epileptic, then the low-carb diet can potentially cause problems. So, once carbs are lowered or removed, a weighty compound known as glycogen is quickly depleted, as well as micronutrients derived from the carbohydrates. So glycogen comprises about 8% of the human body and provides long-term energy to our muscles and our brain cells, and it is always the first to be lost in a low-carb diet, and it is incorrectly mistaken as a good thing when weight drops among followers. So for fit people, loss of glycogen and micronutrients usually leads to muscle weakness, fatigue, poor thyroid function, and most immediately, mental dysfunction or brain fuzziness. So if you've ever tried the low-carb diet and you feel quite fuzzy, that's why. Brain cells also use twice as much energy as any other cells in our body, and this energy is required. It comes strictly from glycogen, and they can't use fats and protein for fuel. So this is why it's further even worse for your brain, because they can't use that energy that your body is using, where you're burning the fat more. Your brain can't use that. And just as muscle cells can't function without water, brain cells are unable to produce enzymes and neurotransmitters that usually aid in memory and problem solving when this glycogen and micronutrients plummet. And this also leads to a mental spiral where we begin to feel a mental funk, or worse, become extremely aggravated and short-tempered. So carbs are important, and our brain needs them to function. They do have a place with some people that may need to go on a very strict weight loss program, but it's never in the long term. It's only a short-term thing. So we've been conditioned to think of exercise as a key ingredient and perhaps the most important ingredient of any weight loss effort. But in truth, the evidence has been accumulating for years that exercise, while great for health, isn't actually all that important for weight loss. And one very underappreciated fact about exercise is that even when you work out, the extra calories you burn only account for a small part of your total energy expenditure. So there are three main components of energy expenditure. There's basal metabolic rate, or the energy used for just basic functioning while the body is at rest, the energy used to break down food, and the energy used in physical activity. What's important to absorb is the fact that we have very little control over our basal metabolic rate, but it's actually our biggest energy hog. It's generally accepted that for most people, the basal metabolic rates account for about 60 to 80% of total energy expenditure, and digesting food accounts for about 10%, which only leaves about 10 to 30% for physical activity, of which exercise is only really a subset. So remember, physical activity involves all movement, including walking around, fidgeting, etc. So the implication here is that while your food intake accounts for 100% of the energy that goes into your body, exercise only burns off less than 10 to 30% of it. And so that's a pretty big discrepancy, which means that erasing all your dietary transgressions at the gym is a lot harder than the peddlers of the gym memberships make it seem. So the definition of diet is to restrict oneself to small amounts of special kinds of food in order to lose weight. Dieting is one of the most common misconceptions to weight loss. You don't actually need to eat these awful green crunchy leaves or drink shakes in order to lose weight. Diets often have negative associations as they imply a period of discomfort. It suggests not eating the type or quantity of food that you normally enjoy. Additionally, a diet is often a short-term process and it usually can't be sustained indefinitely. Now, you don't need to suffer to lose weight. Losing weight may require work, but this work can be fun and challenging in a sort of way, with the potential for very rewarding results. So people that diet often see their weight fluctuate up and down the scale, and this reflects the nature of the diet, and as many diets are quite extreme and not sustainable. So some diets involve cutting out an entire food group, juicing, meal replacement, or severe calorie restriction. Additionally, when a person is on a diet, the complexity of eating is removed, as usually there are fewer choices. Therefore, when a person stops their diet, they usually often resume their previous style of eating, which typically leads to weight gain. So eating is complex as we live in a world full of unlimited food options and choices, but we need food to live. Unfortunately, in today's society, the food has been elevated to a source of pleasure and reward, and people are living to eat. So people need to learn how to eat responsibly, with a consciousness about the quantity of food being consumed while still enjoying the experience. Losing weight is a simple mathematical equation of expending more calories than consumed for an extended period of time. This is that calorie deficit I spoke about earlier. So the imbalance does not need to be a large one, just a small and consistent one. And for long-term successful weight loss, a conscious lifestyle change, including a new approach to food consumption, is needed over switching to a diet. Now, spot training. So this is where you exercise your abs and expect to have abs pop up. So spot training is the idea that you can burn fat cells in a specific area, so say for your abs, by doing exercises that target your areas. So it's important to know that this actually doesn't work, and it's not going to give you abs if you do 4,000 crunches. The scientific consensus is that when you do burn fat, you burn all over your body. So when you do exercises in those specific areas, you are building muscle and not necessarily burning fat. So it is diet in conjunction with those all body exercises that will actually burn the most fat. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, moving on to maintenance. So once you have met your goals, you'll be ready to start a maintenance program. So moderate weight loss works best. This will usually allow your lifestyle to be more maintainable after you meet your initial goal. And physicians actually recommend that dieters lose no more than 1 kilo a week, as this is a conservative approach and it helps patients avoid health risks associated with drastic weight loss. Also, make a slow transition out of the dieting stage. Once you reach your goal weight, the worst thing you can do is resume your old eating habits. Remember that those are the eating habits that cause the weight gain in the first place, and it is reasonable to gradually increase caloric intake, but experts generally suggest adding only about 200 calories a week until your weight stabilizes. Now, stay connected to your sources of support. The same people who supported you in the dieting process will help you maintain your weight loss. They are in the best position to respect the magnitude of your accomplishment and give you a gentle reminder if you lose track of your success. So it's important to communicate with them and give them permission to offer respectful guidance if needed. Continue to challenge yourself with new goals. So now that you've mastered one of the toughest challenges you'll ever face, stay on your toes by setting a new goal. It doesn't have to be related to weight loss. It can be achieved by just short-term or long-term, but it will help keep your confidence levels high. Now, also stay educated. By taking healthy cooking classes, going to health seminars, and participating in fitness fairs, you can surround yourself with reminders of what living a healthy lifestyle really means, and it will also help you stay involved. Now, it's also important to exercise. So research into permanent weight loss reveals that exercise is one of the best predictors of long-term success. So about 30 to 60 minutes of moderate exercise every day will keep both your body and your mind healthy. If you haven't heard of it, that Find 30 campaign, that's where it comes from. Eat breakfast if you're trying to maintain your weight. Studies have found that people who eat breakfast are more successful at keeping the pounds at bay, so make sure that your breakfast includes whole grains and lean sources of protein, as we mentioned in last week's session. 2 weeks ago. Also, weigh yourself. So keep a scale in your bathroom and use it once a week. Studies show that checking your weight on a regular basis is a practice shared by people who successfully keep their weight off. So by tracking your weight, it is very important. It also keeps you accountable. Also, keep regular appointments with your healthcare team. So your healthcare provider or dietitian will be able to measure your body fat percentage, or I can as well, and evaluate your BMI to make sure that your numbers are staying healthy. Now, time's getting on, so we'll just quickly go through building muscle. So building muscle is not the easiest of tasks. You need to make changes from your usual regime in order for your body to adapt. So try these steps for hypertrophy training. So increase your training volume. So training volume is the number of reps multiplied by your number of sets. It is a primary determiner of hypertrophy or muscle growth. And to increase volume, you may need to go lower in weight than you might guess. Compared to training for strength, intensity is going to drop during the hypertrophy phase of a program, with intensity sitting between 50 and 75% of the person's 1 rep max, which is the maximum weight they can lift in 1 rep. So for example, a squat, if you can only do 80 kilos once, that would be your 1 RM squat. To get the volume your muscles need, I would recommend performing each of your lifts for about 3 to 6 sets and about 10 to 20 reps. Now, if you're struggling to get that, then you might need to drop the weight. It's quite broad, but go with what you feel. You want to be explosive in nature as well. Now, building muscle, focus on the eccentric phase. So when lifting any weight, you've got a concentric, the hard phase, and an eccentric, the easy phase, usually when you're lowering and you're not actually having to lift the weight, you're lowering it down. So when you return to standing, So according to research published in the European Journal of Applied Physiology, eccentric work is far better at triggering hypertrophy. So to increase the amount of eccentric effort in your workload, you can do 2 things. You can either slow down the eccentric phase of each exercise you perform or integrate an eccentric only variation into your routine. So take the squat, for example. To make it eccentric only, you would lower to the floor and end the exercise there. Note, if you're trying to do eccentric only exercises, you obviously need to substantially increase the weight that you are using. And physiologically, muscles are usually far stronger moving eccentrically than they are concentrically. Another tip is to decrease between set rest intervals. So if you touch your phone between sets, it's better to set a timer of between 30 to 90 seconds, I think. When lifting for hypertrophy, rest periods of 30 to 90 seconds usually encourage a quick release in muscle building hormones, including testosterone and human growth hormone, while also making sure that you really truly fatigue your muscles. And research published suggests that last year, irrespective of rep and set scheme, fatiguing your muscles is a prerequisite for hypertrophy or muscle building. So don't be afraid to feel the burn. Eat more protein, but not too much. So exercise training breaks down your muscles. Protein helps build them back up. And the harder you're lifting workouts, the more important protein intake is to your recovery. And according to research, for optimal protein growth, weightlifters need to eat about 1 to 1.3 grams of protein per kilo of body weight per day. So that means if you weigh about 100 kilos, for example, you'd want to be eating about 10 to 13 grams of, 100 to 113 grams of protein. And for example, a 100-gram steak wouldn't have 100 grams of protein. To give you an idea, I know that my tuna tins that are 95 grams in weight, they have about 19 grams of protein. So to get my protein fill, say for about 80 grams, I'd need to eat 4 tins of tuna, and that's my protein for the day. That's a lot of tuna, and I wouldn't suggest it. Tuna has mercury. Now, another way you can build muscle is focusing on calorie surpluses, so not a deficit. So this one can be hard to get used to, especially for those who are used to counting calories in the hopes of losing weight. But to be most effective in building muscle, you need to consume more calories than you burn each day, and that's because your body senses that it's in a calorie deficit. Because your body would sense that you're in a calorie deficit, meaning that you're consuming fewer calories a day, it downshifts your body's tendency to build more muscle. After all, if your body thinks food is in short supply, getting built isn't going to be its main priority. So try and aim to eat roughly 250 to 500 extra calories per day to make sure that your weight is gained in your muscle. Now, another one is to get sleep. So muscle recovery requires more than the right nutrition. It takes time. Roughly 8 hours a night is dedicated to recovery. And after all, when you sleep, your body does release that human growth hormone, which I mentioned earlier. And this facilitates muscle growth and keeps levels of stress hormone and cortisol in check. Plus, according to a study, sleeping for 5 hours as opposed to 8 hours per night for just 1 week cuts muscle building testosterone levels by a whopping 10 to 15%. So the National Sleep Foundation recommends that adults aged 18 to 64 sleep 7 to 9 hours a night. Oh, last two. Another one you can do is snack on casein before bed. So long popular among bodybuilders, casein protein absorbs slowly into the bloodstream, meaning it keeps your muscles fed with amino acids for longer compared to other types of proteins such as whey and plant proteins. The supplementing before you go to bed can be a great way to keep your muscle up. And a study found that by consuming casein protein immediately before bed boosted young men's levels of circulating amino acids for 7.5 hours, and they built muscle all night long while they slept. To get some pre-bed casein, try cottage cheese or Greek yogurt or milk. And for smoothie lovers, you can get casein-based protein powders, and that works like a charm. Or you can try a different supplement. You can try creatine. So creatine doesn't actually directly build muscle, but by boosting your performance at high-intensity lifting workouts, the natural compound effectively promotes muscle growth. So according to the Journal of International Society of Sports Nutrition, researchers concluded that at a given weight, supplementing with creatine can actually help you lift 14% more reps than you can without the supplement. So for the best results, opt for a creatine monohydrate, and as that's the most thoroughly researched form of the supplement. Now, if you're with me in person, we're going to do a practical weights session. Otherwise, thank you for listening on the recording. I hope you enjoyed today's session. And again, it went a bit longer than I would hoped, but it's got a lot of information for you. And yeah, I hope to see you next week. Otherwise, thank you very much.